I don't know when it started. I just know that somewhere between silence and breath, I felt this you. Not the loud parts, not the moments everyone sees, but the real you. The kind you don't explain, the kind you recognize. Some feelings don't arrive with answers, they arrive with certainty. And this is one of them. I don't feel you in my hands or my eyes. I feel you deeper than that. I feel you in the pauses, in the stillness, in the way my heart knows before my mind catches up. I feel this you in the quiet moments where nothing is demanded and nothing is performed, where the world slows down enough for truth to breathe, where I am not trying to impress time or outrun fear, just standing still and realizing that something real has already arrived, because some connections don't knock, they don't ask permission, they simply exist, steady and patient, like they've always been, waiting for you to notice. And when I say I feel this you, I don't mean the version shaped by expectations or circumstances. I mean the core, the unedited presence, the part that stays the same even when everything else shifts. I feel it when I'm strong and when I'm unsure, when the day is full and when the night stretches long. It doesn't change its shape to fit my comfort, it stays honest, and that honesty feels like home. I feel this you in the pauses between words, in the way silence doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels shared, like something is being understood without explanation, like we don't have to fill the space just to prove we're here because being here is already enough. And in a world that rushes to label everything, this feeling doesn't need a name. It doesn't ask to be defined. It just asks to be respected, to be allowed to exist as it is, raw and unpolished and real. I feel this you not as a sudden fire, but as a steady warmth, the kind that doesn't burn out, the kind that stays even when the room grows cold. It's not loud. It doesn't compete for attention. It simply stays, and staying is rare. Staying is brave. Staying is a choice made again and again without applause. And somehow this feeling understands that. It understands patience. It understands timing. It understands that depth doesn't rush. I feel this you in the way my guard lowers without effort, not because I was told to trust, but because something in me recognizes something in you, like two truths meeting without suspicion, without needing proof, just a quiet agreement that this is safe, that this is worth holding gently. And that kind of safety isn't built overnight, it's felt instantly and honored slowly. I feel this you when I'm not at my best, when I don't have the right words or the right answers, when I'm just human, unfinished and learning, and still this feeling doesn't retreat. It doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't threaten to leave if I stumble. It stays close without crowding, present without pressure. And that kind of presence changes a person. I feel this you as recognition rather than discovery, like I didn't find something new. I remembered something old, something familiar that somehow survived distance and time and uncertainty. Like this connection was written quietly into the background of my life and only now stepped forward, not to interrupt but to align, to remind me of what matters when everything else feels temporary. I feel this you in the way the futu. Re doesn't feel heavy anymore. It doesn't feel like a promise I have to perform. It feels like a path I can walk honestly, without pretending to be fearless, without pretending to know everything, just knowing that walking it with this feeling makes the unknown less intimidating, because fear loses its edge when you're not facing it alone. I feel this you not as possession, not as something to claim or control, but as something to respect, to choose freely every day, because real connection doesn't trap. It opens, it doesn't demand, it invites, it doesn't shout. It listens, and this feeling listens deeply. It hears the parts of me I don't say out loud. I feel this you in the small moments that don't make stories, the ordinary seconds that usually pass unnoticed. Because love that only lives in grand gestures doesn't survive real life, but love that lives in awareness, in attention, in the simple act of truly seeing another person, that kind of love grows roots, and roots don't rush, they anchor. I feel this you as something honest enough to be quiet, strong enough to be gentle, and rare enough to be protected, not hidden but held with care. Because not everything meaningful needs to be displayed. Some things are powerful precisely because they are lived, not announced, because they exist whether or not anyone is watching. I feel this you, and I don't need to explain it to justify it. I don't need certainty to honor it. I don't need guarantees to stand in it, because this feeling isn't asking for ownership or assurance. It's asking for presence, for sincerity, for the courage to stay real in a world that rewards pretending, and that feels like truth. and truth doesn't need an ending. Feel this you in the silence we don't try to escape. The kind of silence most people rush to fill because it makes them uncomfortable. But this silence feels different. It feels intentional, like it was meant to be here, like it's holding something sacred between us, because when words fall away, what remains is truth. And in that truth, I sense you clearly, not as an idea, not as a role, but as a presence that doesn't need volume to be known. I feel this you in the way time behaves differently around us, how minutes don't feel measured anymore, how moments stretch without effort, as if the clock understands that something meaningful is happening and chooses not to interfere. And in those stretched moments, there's no urgency, no pressure to arrive somewhere else, just the quiet understanding that right now is enough. I feel this you when nothing is being said, but everything is being understood. When a look carries more honesty than 100 sentences. When a breath shared in the same space feels like agreement, and that kind of understanding isn't learned, it's recognized. Like two inner languages discovering they've always spoken the same way. I feel this you in the calm that replaces noise inside me, the calm that doesn't come from control but from acceptance, from knowing. I don't have to defend who I am or explain why I feel the way I feel, because this presence doesn't interrogate, it doesn't analyze, it simply allows, and being allowed to exist without justification is a rare kind of freedom. I feel this you in the way distance doesn't erase connection, how even apart there's a sense of alignment, like something steady remains untouched by space, untouched by absence. Because what's real doesn't disappear when it's not visible. It stays rooted, it waits, it trusts, and trust doesn't panic when it's quiet. I feel this you in the patience that surrounds this feeling, how it doesn't rush toward conclusions, how it doesn't demand outcomes, how it's content to unfold at its own pace because some things lose their meaning when forced. And this connection understands that depth is built by time, not conquered by speed. I feel this you in the way vulnerability doesn't feel dangerous here, how lowering my guard doesn't feel like losing strength, but like reclaiming it, because strength isn't about being untouchable, it's about being honest without fear of being diminished, and this space holds honesty gently without using it as leverage. I feel this you in the moments of uncertainty when I don't have clarity, when the path ahead isn't fully lit, and still there's no urge to turn away because this presence doesn't require certainty to stay. It doesn't need everything figured out to remain close. It understands that life is unfinished and chooses to stay present anyway. I feel this you in the respect that lives between us, the respect that listens instead of interrupts, that waits instead of assumes, that observes without trying to fix, because not every emotion needs to be solved, some only need to be witnessed, and being witnessed without judgment changes how a person breathes. I feel this you in the simplicity of just being here, not performing connection, not proving depth, just existing side by side in awareness, because simplicity isn't shallow, it's honest. And honest things endure, they don't exhaust themselves trying to impress, they conserve energy for what actually matters. I feel this you as a quiet agreement to meet life as it is, not as we wish it to be, to sit with reality instead of escaping it, to hold space instead of controlling outcomes. And that agreement doesn't need to be spoken, it's felt, it's lived, it's present in the way silence feels full instead of empty. I feel this you in the understanding that some connections aren't meant to be loud declarations, they're meant to be steady truths carried carefully, protected by intention rather than secrecy, honored through consistency rather than display, because what's deeply real doesn't ask for attention, it commands respect. I feel this you, steady in the quiet, patient in the pause, real without announcement, present without demand, and the silence where this feeling lives doesn't need to end because it's already saying everything. I feel this you in the choice to stay present, not because it's easy, not because it's guaranteed, but because it feels right in a way that doesn't need validation. Presence isn't about being perfect or always knowing what to do. It's about showing up honestly, even when there are doubts, even when the answers aren't clear. And in that presence, I sense something grounded, something real, something that doesn't disappear when things become complicated. I feel this you in the moments when I could pull away but don't, when instinct says protect yourself, yet something deeper says remain open, because this connection doesn't feel like a risk to survive. It feels like a truth to respect, and respecting it means staying aware, staying kind, staying human, instead of hiding behind distance. I feel this you in the discipline of consistency, not the dramatic kind that announces itself, but the quiet kind that returns every day, that listens again, that chooses patience over reaction. Because real connection isn't built in intensity alone, it's built in repetition. In the small decision to care again and again without keeping score. I feel this you in the way responsibility feels different here, not like a weight, but like intention, like understanding that what we share deserves mindfulness, deserves effort without force, deserves honesty without cruelty, and that kind of responsibility isn't imposed, it's willingly accepted because something meaningful is being protected. I feel this you in the courage to be seen as I am, without armor, without exaggeration, without shrinking or performing, because this space doesn't reward masks, it recognizes truth, and being recognized without distortion allows something solid to form, something that doesn't collapse under pressure. I feel this you in the understanding that love isn't a promise shouted into the future, it's an action lived in the present, it's attention, it's restraint, it's choosing not to disappear when vulnerability shows up. And this connection understands that love is less about saying forever and more about staying today. I feel this you in the boundaries that exist without walls, the clarity that doesn't need control, the respect that allows freedom instead of fear because possession weakens what presence strengthens. And this feeling doesn't try to hold tighter, it trusts deeper. I feel this you in the way conflict doesn't feel like a threat, but like information, like a chance to understand rather than dominate. Because being right matters less here than being real, and being real requires listening even when it's uncomfortable, even when it asks something of you. I feel this you in the balance between independence and closeness, how neither is sacrificed, how both are honored. Because true connection doesn't erase individuality, it supports it. It stands beside instead of standing over. And that balance creates stability without suffocation. I feel this you in the patience to grow slowly, to allow evolution without panic, to accept that becoming takes time, and that rushing only fractures what needs space. This feeling understands seasons, it understands timing, it understands that depth is cultivated, not demanded. I feel this you as a choice renewed quietly, not announced loudly, chosen in awareness rather than impulse. Because what lasts is rarely impulsive, it's intentional, it's maintained, it's protected through presence and care. I feel this you, not as something that binds, but as something that grounds, not as an escape, but as a way to stand more firmly in reality, and that grounded presence doesn't need an ending, because it continues each time the choice to stay present. Is Madi feel this you as recognition, not something I chased or imagined, but something I noticed once I finally slowed down enough to see clearly. Because some connections don't arrive with excitement first, they arrive with familiarity, like meeting a truth that's been patient longer than you have, waiting quietly for the right moment to be acknowledged. I feel this you in the way my instincts settle instead of react. How there's no urge to impress or convince, just a calm understanding that being myself is enough here, and that kind of ease isn't accidental. It's the result of something honest meeting something honest without resistance. I feel this you as love that doesn't try to own, doesn't try to shape, doesn't try to rewrite who you are, because real recognition doesn't demand change. It keeps. It respects the form something already has and chooses to stand with it rather than rearrange it. I feel this you in the dignity of mutual freedom, where closeness doesn't feel like confinement and space doesn't feel like abandonment. Because when two people recognize each other fully, distance doesn't threaten the bond, it simply exists alongside it without fear. I feel this you in the way effort feels natural, not forced, not transactional, not measured, because love that keeps score eventually runs out. But love that flows from recognition renews itself quietly, without announcement, without expectation of reward. I feel this you in the understanding that no one completes another person, that we arrive whole, and connection is not about filling emptiness but about sharing fullness, and this feeling honors that wholeness instead of trying to replace it. I feel this you in the calm acceptance of imperfection, not as tolerance but as understanding, because perfection creates distance, it demands performance, but imperfection invites presence. It allows people to stay human without fear of being dismissed. I feel this you as something that doesn't need to be proven to others because validation weakens what truth strengthens, and this connection stands on its own weight, steady enough not to collapse without applause. I feel this you in the way love feels less like a possession and more like a shared awareness, less like a declaration and more like a practice, something Lee fed quietly through consistency, through honesty, through the courage to remain open without control. Feel this you in the respect that protects without restricting, in the care that supports without overshadowing, because love that recognizes doesn't compete. It complements. It doesn't consume. It coexists. I feel this you as a mirror rather than an anchor, reflecting truth instead of holding it down. Because what is real doesn't need to be restrained, it needs to be trusted. I feel this you as something chosen freely every day without pressure, without obligation, without fear, and that freedom is what makes the choice meaningful, because only what can be left and is still chosen holds real weight. I feel this you not as an ending, not as a destination, but as a way of seeing, a way of being present, a way of recognizing love when it appears quietly and stays without demanding to be noticed.